Have you ever stopped to think about, well, how a train stops? It's a piece of engineering we take for granted, but it's built around an incredibly clever, life-saving secret that's just genius. So let's get right into it. Just try to picture this. You've got thousands upon thousands of tons of steel, absolutely rocketing down a track. Stopping that kind of momentum isn't just a challenge, it's a massive physics problem. And the solution, believe me, is a whole lot cooler than just a giant brake pedal. In fact, the way a train's brakes work is probably the exact opposite of what you'd guess. And that totally counterintuitive design is precisely what makes it one of the most reliable safety systems ever invented. Okay, so before we get to the brilliant solution, we really have to wrap our heads around the problem. I mean, what are you even asking a brake system to do when it's responsible for something that big? You know, it's not just about raw power. Sure, it has to stop, but the driver needs pinpoint control. The system can't ever run out of juice. It has to keep working, even on these long downhill runs. But the number one thing, the absolute deal breaker, is that it has to be fail-safe. If anything at all goes wrong, the brakes must come on, period.
And that one single requirement leads us to the secret ingredient of train brakes. This is the big aha moment, the game-changing idea that the entire system is built on.
And here it is. In your car, to stop, you push the pedal, which adds pressure to a fluid system, and that engages the brakes. Simple enough. On a train, it is the complete opposite. To put the brakes on, the driver actually removes air pressure from a long pipe that connects every single car. And that's the stroke of genius. The system's natural default state is with the brakes on. You have to constantly work, pumping the system full of compressed air just to hold the brakes off. So think about what that means. If a hose breaks, if two cars separate, what happens? Air pressure is lost, and the system automatically does what it's designed to do. It slams on the brakes. It fails safe. Okay, so that's the core principle, remove air to brake. But how does that actually play out in the real world across, say, a mile-long freight train? Well, it all happens in three really distinct stages. First, you've got the charging stage. That's when the locomotive is pumping air through the whole train, filling up the system. That high pressure is what keeps the brakes off. Then you have application. The driver wants to slow down, so they let some of that air out. That drop in pressure is the signal, and every car on the train says, okay, time to brake. Finally, there's release. The driver pumps the pipe back up to full pressure, and that's the signal for all the cars to let go. But hang on a second, how does each car know what to do? The signal, that pressure drop, is the same for everyone. So how does the last car on the train know how hard to brake and when? The answer is a seriously clever piece of kit that's on every single car. It's called the distributor valve, or DV for short. Honestly, the best way to think of it is as a little local manager on each car. Its only job is to watch the main brake pipe and listen for commands from the driver up front. So, when this little manager feels the pressure drop in that main pipe, it springs into action. It doesn't use the air from the main pipe to brake, oh no. It opens a valve to its own private air tank right there on the car and uses that air to push the brake shoes against the wheels. Then, when it senses the main pipe pressure going back up and knows that's the signal to release, it's this amazing decentralized network where one single command from the front results in a perfectly timed, independent action down the entire line. Now that whole system is brilliant, right? But as our trains got faster and faster, a new problem popped up. If you brake really hard, you run the risk of locking up the wheels and having them just slide along the track, and that's not just bad, it's actually a terrible way to stop. So, how do you solve that? It all comes down to a concept called adhesion. It's basically just the grip between the steel wheel and the steel rail. There's a perfect amount of brake force you can apply. But if you apply too much, especially if it's wet out, you break that grip. The wheel just stops spinning and starts skidding. And here's another one of those counterintuitive physics things. A sliding wheel has way less friction than a rolling wheel that's just about to slip. So the second a wheel locks up, you're not stopping faster, you're actually making your stopping distance longer, all while grinding flat spots into the wheel and damaging the track. The modern solution for this is called wheel slide protection, or WSP. Here's how it works. Every axle has a little speed sensor. A computer is constantly watching the speeds of all the axles.
If it sees one axle suddenly start to slow down way faster than the others, the classic sign of a lockup, it instantly tells a dump valve on that specific axle to release just a little bit of brake pressure, letting the wheel catch up and start rolling properly again.
Yep, you guessed it. It is literally an anti-lock braking system for a train. It's just doing it on a mind-boggling scale. By making hundreds of these tiny adjustments every second, it keeps every single wheel in that perfect sweet spot of maximum braking without ever letting it slide. So let's just quickly recap the big ideas here. Number 1, the entire system is built to be fail-safe because losing air pressure is what makes it stop. Number 2, every car has its own little brain, the distributor valve, that makes the whole decentralized system work. And number 3, modern trains have what's basically ABS to prevent skids and get the absolute best stopping performance.
It's really just a beautiful, elegant, and incredibly robust piece of engineering. But it does make you wonder, as we keep pushing for faster trains, more automated trains, what's the next step? How does this amazing, century-old idea need to evolve for the future? Something to think about the next time you're at a station and hear that classic hiss of air.